Well, I'm not sure why I didn't do this sooner, but this is the Pinty series mod by Splash and Go Graphics for NASCAR Racing 2003 season. In particular, this is the 2021 season car set released today by a guy named Phil Den Hollander over on Stunode Racing. Hope I pronounced that right. So I figured there'd be no better way to showcase the greatness of this aging yet perfectly capable NASCAR simulator than to run a full-length Pinty series race at Delaware Speedway. So the Pinty series was actually here last week for both the Quick 125 as well as the Pinty's Fall Brawl, and we'll be running the Saturday night event, which is the Quick 125. Obviously, once I take the green flag for the race session, I'll talk a lot about the physics of this game and why they're so timeless, as well as the incredible pack racing AI that makes this game still a blast to play almost 20 years later. But as the qualifying results roll in, I really want to focus on an often overlooked aspect of racing sims. And it's something NR2003 does exceptionally well, which is getting the lap times almost bang on in terms of accuracy. So we're on the pole with a 19-second flat lap time, and the rest of the field clicks off 1s, 2s, and 3s. Just remember that. So we're now going to head over to Racing Reference and check out the qualifying results from this exact race. Trayton Lapsovich puts the car on pole with a 19-second flat lap time. The top 10 all qualify with times of either a 19.1, a 19.2, or a 19.3. This is incredible. Considering a lot of modern racing sims, you'll have road course cars that are sometimes entire seconds a lap faster than their real-world counterparts. This is awesome. This is the kind of stuff I love to see in a racing sim. So the pace car has pulled in, and we are going to take the green flag for the Quick 125 with the exact front row from this race, with Lapsovich leading Kennington to the green. Already Kennington is on our outside, and he's actually going to get the better run off a 2 because just that's the way the corner geometry for 1 and 2 works, and he's going to settle in front of us. Delaware is a really interesting track to run. Turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 are not symmetrical. 1 and 2 are banked higher than 3 and 4, and the radius is a bit longer. So you can get on the power a lot earlier and let the banking carry the car out, whereas 3 and 4 are just slightly flatter and the corner is slightly tighter, so you have to really back up your braking point and roll through the center of the corner. It's a lot of fun, and it's what makes short track racing such a unique discipline of auto racing. The cars really don't want to stop all that well. The cars don't want to turn all that well. You're racing a couple inches from the wall, and usually you're racing at facilities with uneven concrete, with different concrete surfaces, with corners that are mismatched from one another, so you can never get the setup quite right. It's always a little better in one end of the track than it is the other, and you have to figure out how to make it work, and that's the situation I'm finding myself in right now, having to chase down DJ Kennington. The car, based on the setup I threw at it, is really good in 1 and 2. It's not so great in 3 and 4, and I'm going to have to live with it because there's really not much I can do in the way of adjustments from now until the end of the race. I also just can't push to catch up to him and blow the doors off him right away because I only got one set of tires this race. I got to start thinking about what the car is going to handle like with 30, 20, or even 10 to go. So we're going to skip ahead to lap 24 here, and I'm going to show you what happens if you do get a bit too greedy and want to lead a meaningless set of laps early in the race. I go into turn 3 here. I'm feeling really ambitious. I want to catch DJ, and the back end washes out just a bit. And Alex Tagliani, the former open wheel driver, sneaks up my inside and takes second from me. That's all it took. It's a lot different than road racing in something like Assetto Corsa, where you can have a bad corner or two, and it's not the end of the world. Here, one bad corner and the guy was on me, and he was by. Now, thankfully, our cars are pretty evenly matched, so he's not pulling away like Kennington did. In fact, I'm gonna stay on Tagliani's bumper for a while here throughout the first third of the race or so. And while I do that, I want to talk about what makes this game so special and why people are still actively modding it and making shit for it and playing it close to 20 years later. It's almost impossible to convey just how well this game drives. I know it really doesn't look like much. I know that the track mod is from like 2006. I know the interior dash model is nothing to write home about. I know the car models are, like a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. But that's not why people play this game. This game does two things extraordinarily well when it comes to the physics. The sense of weight and momentum and inertia, especially under braking like we'll go into turn 3 here, is second to none in any racing sim. When you jump on the brakes going into a corner, you can feel that the brakes really don't do a lot, and the car is actually struggling to stop, and you might be in trouble if you don't get your braking points right. No other sim replicates this. You might have sims that get the tire behavior right. You might have sims that get the car's weight or inertia right. This is the only sim that does both. When I set the car up for a corner and start jumping on the brakes and guiding it down to the bottom, it feels sluggish. It feels unresponsive. It kind of floats around under me. It doesn't feel like it wants to stop. Even with like a good setup in, and you know, having memorized the track beforehand and being like experienced driving these kinds of cars, this game never lets you forget every single corner that this car is not nimble and not meant to be doing this. The other part of this equation would be the tire model itself. In a lot of modern racing sims, a mix of overly complicated tire models mixed with guys just not being on the same page about how a race car tire behaves result in cars that it seems like you can just keep asking whatever you want from the tires, and your only obstacle is just how much they've worn since the start of a fuel run. For example, let's take something like Project Cars 2. It feels like at the start of a fuel run on fresh tires, the car can almost always keep up with how fast you move your hands on the steering wheel, and you can just come barreling into corners with little regard for setting the nose. You almost drive it like it's a giant go-kart. This game does not let you get away with that. It's one of the few racing sims ever made where you have to back up your corner entry. You have to roll the center of the corner. You can't come flying into a corner and expect the front tires or your rapid steering inputs to bail you out. You have to be rhythmic every single lap. And at the rear of the car, if you don't keep it in check and you either trail brake too excessively or are just really ambitious on corner entry, it will step out on you like we saw earlier in this video, which is how the 18 car got around me. So all these little elements come together to create a stock car racing experience where you're not finding the metal line like in your standard esports competition, but you really do have to drive it like a real car and manage your tires and think about weight and momentum and inertia every single time you enter a corner. Lap 49 is our first marker of something happening in this race. The 7 car blows the fuck up and stops on the front stretch, and I make a wonderful driving error because I forgot that this game was released prior to NASCAR banning cars racing back to the yellow flag. In real life, they freeze the field. So I ended up falling back to 4th place because I'm an idiot. But thankfully, this is only short-lived because as we come around to pit road entry on the following lap, all of the leaders, so Kennington, Tagliani, and the 52 or 51, is it Rick Ware car? No, it's the 52. They all decide to pit, and I don't really see the point in this because I thought my tires were fine, and I was still turning 19 1s, 2s, and 3s 50-some laps into the race. So we're going to restart here, single file, because this is how they did it in 2003 with lap cars on the inside. Kennington got stuck in the pits during the pit cycle. I guess the crew made an error or something like that, which does exist in this game. So the battle is now between myself and Alex Tagliani. The number 22 lap car is going to get around us, and my job is now to run away from Alex Tagliani, who's been running more or less on my pace for the first third of the event. And the cart is starting to wander around on me. I do notice the tires just aren't as grippy on corner exit as they used to be, but I did a pretty good job for the first third of the race saving the tires. I wasn't really lighting them up off the corner. I was always trying to accelerate straight from the apex outwards towards the wall, so I wasn't generating any unnecessary heat by sliding with like 1 or 2 degrees of slip angle off the corner. And that's really important, and that is something that is beneficial in this game, is to really be conservative on corner exit, because it does make a huge difference later in the run, and you will notice the benefits of saving your tires. So in this little green flag stint, as we hold off the 18 car, we get to talk about the other element that makes this game amazing, and that is probably something you've noticed already, the AI. We're still not entirely sure what Papyrus did to make such a captivating offline AI experience, because a lot of their pathfinding logic is similar, if not the same, as what you would see in other racing sims. The AI follow a best line. The AI are defined a track left and a track right. So when they're hunting around the track, like this car in front of us is, they know there's only so far left they can go. They know there's only so far right they can go. They know there's a pit road path. But just the combination of code and logic that we can't see and has never really been elaborated upon results in pretty incredible AI racing. The AI are really respectful around you, unlike games such as R Factor or any of its derivatives like Project Cars or R Factor 2 Race Room. The AI in this game frequently give you space and even drive as if they have their own spotter. If you pull up to someone and you're looking on the inside of them, they will actually move over and give you a bit of room to work with, unlike what you'll see in ISI Motor Sims, where they will frequently chop you even if you have their door. The AI understand to yield to other cars in ways that are just not seen in any other racing sims. So when you're running in a pack, you don't feel terrified that an AI car is just going to flat out wreck you. Not only do they give you room, they give each other room, so you can run, pretty close to each other without having to fear these typical R Factor jankiness. And you can try this yourself just running super speedway races. If you get a run on a car and you pull to its inside, he will move over as if he has his own spotter that said car inside. So that results in just an incredible racing experience across the board, where the cars, they do kind of seem like they have eyes in the back of their head, but again, if you poke your nose alongside them, or you try and force yourself into a spot that's not open, they will make concessions. As you can see, the tires are starting to wear a bit more now that we're halfway through the race and Tags gets by me. And there's what I mentioned earlier, where I just didn't keep the rear end in check. I got too greedy, and I got sideways off the corner. And that's something that you really don't experience in modern racing sims. The car's always just super planted. So we're going to skip ahead to 11 to go because Tagliani did not run away from me, and I was able to slowly reel him in over the course of about 40 or 50 laps, and this really showcases the AI at its best. You'll notice when I poke my nose inside of him, he understands that I'm there, and he gives me a bit of a lane to work with. Again, that's not something you experience in a lot of different racing sims. You'll also notice in this corner, I'm able to actually bump him and move him up the track, which is not common in racing games. A lot of racing games, you'll awkwardly slide off an AI car, or they'll act as you didn't even touch them. The Papyrus AI in this game, when you touch another AI car, they have weight to them, but they can also be moved off the spot that they own on the track. They're not magnetized to the racing surface. So it results in a just really captivating AI racing experience where the AI drive as if they have their own spotters. They'll give you room if you get alongside them. And when you start making contact with them, you're not at the mercy of a weird physics instance. You can rub doors with them and push them around, and they'll push you back. And not only does it look realistic, but the way energy is transferred if you guys do make contact feels realistic. So I throw it in deep here alongside Tags, and again, he lets me have that line, and he's able to power out on the high side because the game understands he took a wider corner than I did, so he should have the run.
The next car's the leader. Keep low. Clear.
And it just makes for this really awesome battle at the end of, half-hour race or so. We got 7 to go. We're both on worn tires, and I just have to drive as if I'm racing against a human opponent. I know if I get alongside him or I start exploring lines around him, he's going to be respectful to me. I know that if I want to bump him or rub doors with him down the backstretch, it won't result in some weird physics instance where I slide off and get wrecked without the 18 being affected at all. I know that his car is going to exhibit natural tendencies to move around based on how hard I shunt him. It's beautiful. It's awesome.
Outside.
Again, I throw it in. Tag spotter calls that I'm on the inside, and he gives it to me.
Still there.
And then he says, nope, I had the wider line. I got the better run off the corner.
Here comes the leader.
It's yours.
Stay low. Clear outside. Outside. Still there.
Side by side with the AI for a whole lap. What other game lets you do this?
Clear outside.
And even as I clear him, There's no rubber banding that kicks in. He doesn't just shoot into the corner and wreck me. He understands that, oh fuck, he's in second place. His options are pretty limited right now. And he's probably not going to get here.
Just 2 to go.
Because again, when you're playing defense, the AI only launch attacks if they've got a clear lane on you. This isn't like R Factor or P cars where you have to worry that an AI is just going to shunt his way in there. They understand that something called patience exists, which means that you can have these really awesome call and response battles.
Come on, bring it home. Outside. Stay low.
And we are going to pull away from tags after one really awesome race. And the big secret about this game is that every race plays out like this, with storylines, with AI respecting your boundaries, with cars gaining speed and then falling off over the course of a run. There is no better racing sim on the market. And yet somehow this game is close to 20 years old, so anytime a newer racing sim comes out that doesn't get this behavior right that I outlined in this video, it's just, I wonder what we're doing. I wonder how we went backwards.